Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, we're glad to welcome you to our today's webinar. A few words regarding the event organization. The webinar will be recorded and then posted on our video portal and YouTube channel. You may ask all your questions via QA field. At the end of the event, our speaker will answer all of them and choose the best question. The offer which will get a gift from our community. Our today's speakers are Gabriel Garcia and Roland Baumann, and the topic of their webinar is S4Explorer, a clear view into SAP S4HANA. I give the floor to our speakers.
Thank you, Hannah. Now, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning and good evening for those of you who are joining from other parts of the world. And welcome to today's SAP Tech Talk, where we'll be presenting our S4HANA accelerator tool, S4Explorer. As Hannah mentioned, I am Gabriel Garcia. I will be your main speaker for today. I am a senior consultant with EPAM's newly acquired company, JustBI, currently occupying the position of product owner for these developments. And with me is Roland Baumann. He is a principal consultant and the brains behind the tool we will be presenting to you today. Now, there are a few items we want to run through before we get to the high point of our talk, which is a demonstration. We will begin by describing the current circumstances that surround SAP's new digital core solution, S4HANA. This will lead us into the birth process of our tool, presenting the way of working that created the necessity for its development, whilst highlighting the actual process that S4Explorer was engineered to accelerate. We will then leverage a couple of simple use cases to demonstrate the tool's features and unlock the value behind its use and implementation. And at the end, we will close with a Q&A session. Now, feel free to post your questions in the chat during the presentation if any should arise, and we will make sure to tackle these at the end. Let's begin with our first point for today, which is the current state of affairs. Now, according to SAP, S4HANA's enterprise license subscriptions have gone up 500% in the last 5 years. According to surveys, 58% of the remaining ECC users will switch to SAP cloud-based solutions within the next 3 years. And in 4 years' time, SAP will no longer support their previous ERP, forcing users to migrate and replace their legacy systems. The result of these factors are reflected in the steadily growing market investment for S4HANA. Now, S4HANA's brand new feature is the embedded analytics capacity. Most of our talk will be centering around this capacity today. Now, this capacity allows users to consume and report on both transactional and historical data. This technology requires a steep learning curve and new skill sets due to the unfamiliar stacked nature of the virtual data models built on CDS views. This leads to the fact that implementations, customizations, and adaptations are now being considered highly complex work. The way the analysis for developments is being carried out right now, by navigating the virtual data models using tools that require going through thousands of lines of script and tracing data objects layer by layer without a clear end-to-end view, can lead to incorrect planning and effort estimations when trying to implement, adapt, or customize a new system. We consider these three facts to be strong indicators that an accelerator tool that can aid the facing of these challenges and provide workflow enhancing features and transparency is prone to becoming a hot item with a large user base in the coming years. And this leads us to the birth of our S4Explorer. Now, when attempting to implement any analytical solution, and in this particular case, S4HANA's embedded analytic offering, the functional process is something that consultants are quite familiar with. It's a cycle we go through each time. We begin by creating a central team, both of functional and technical experts, the initial objective being to research and gather business requirements. We do this by connecting and having working sessions with all lines of business involved in the project scope. The goal of these workshops is to put together a list. The list which will serve as a foundation for the rest of our work. In this document, we gather our clients' key performance indicators, allowing us to see how they measure success and how they measure failure for their current processes. For each KPI, we define different parameters. We define their source, we define their definition, the calculation and the logic that defines it, and the timeliness of its reporting, for example, if it's a yearly, monthly, or weekly progressive comparison, and the reporting angles. So basically, if they would like to view it per country, department, or product level, for example. Once we've gathered all this information, we need to prioritize the requirements. Now, using the Moscow method generally, we do this, and then we can currently manage our backlogs and begin our work on business critical needs. Now, this leads us into the unaccelerated method. So this is the method, this is the part that we try to accelerate by creating this tool, which is the thick part of the work. So this is looking into S/4HANA's hood, into its engine, and analyzing which requirements were already met by SAP, which of them needed customization, and which had to be built from the ground up. Now, let's have a look at what the method looks like. As mentioned previously, the KPI list was a cornerstone of our research. Given S/4HANA's system architecture, we decided to adopt a top-to-bottom approach. We began by clicking into the Fiori Launchpad, and as a navigation instrument, we leveraged the Fiori app library to investigate which available reporting apps would comply or not with our reporting requirements. Now, once we found a reasonably good match, if any, we documented its implementation information, the OData service or underlying CDS view, its catalog information, and the groups and roles necessary to view the app. Following this, we fired up our own Fiori Launchpad and ran the app there. We used the gathered catalog information to determine further characteristics via the Launchpad designer. Now, we continue to make our way down this rabbit hole, now looking to the back end of the system, with the objective of documenting precisely how compliant the system was to the requirement. In some cases, we use Eclipse's ABAP development toolkit, parting from the CDS consumption view and navigating through the virtual data models. In other cases, we located and investigated the service gateway feeding the Fiori app by using SAP's graphic user interface. Now, you have to understand that the embedded analytics environment is quite big, offering a large realm of possibilities. It was quite effortful to track each app down to its source, having each KPI mapped to a single app. Whether it is a Fiori Elements app that through CDS views connected to a base table, a smart business style backed by a manual model through an OData connection, or even a design studio app with an ENA connection to a base table. The result of this work was the creation of a KPI scorecard, where we estimated how much S/4HANA fulfilled the required functionality for each of the KPI's parameters, but most importantly, the gaps that we needed to fill in by customizing and adapting the system. Each of these gaps embodied an amount of work to be done, which leads us to create a KPI effort score. When repeating this process many times, it was noted that most of the effort was to be concentrated in the virtual data models, meaning the extension or creation of CDS views. But tracing objects definition and dependency turned out to be an incredibly time-consuming task, given the stacked nature of the models. It's made out of hundreds of views, each one containing many lines of script, making it quite difficult to map out. After having to do this many times, we approached our development team, trying to find a way in which we could accelerate the process. We put forward the necessity of an easy access launchpad with the possibility to have multiple instances configured in one location. A tool that would allow us to filter through smart and intuitive search functions that comprehended inclusive and exclusive logic, with intelligent content navigation that provides valuable insights regarding S/4HANA objects, allowing us to plot out and visualize a complete picture, enabling our teams to comment, annotate, and collaborate, thus centralizing our knowledge base, and giving us the capacity of exporting all the necessary information, unlocking the possibility of presenting it to our business counterparts. This is what led us to the creation of S4Explorer. Now, without further ado, let's have a small look at the tool. We've prepared a couple of use cases to highlight the features of the tool. First, I'm just gonna go ahead and load it. Let's do a refresh. So the front end of the tool is a Fiori app, runs on your browser. It uses the SAP UI5. On the back end of the tool, it's run on S4HANA, and it uses a custom OData service. We designed the Launchpad also using Node.js, and it can actually access multiple S4 systems. Now, look at our use cases. Let's begin with the first. Demo, the first one. Let's say you're an implementation consultant, and the client requirement is a list of open sales quotations. They just want a report that contains a list of this. The calculation necessary or the metrics necessary are just a total amount of euro of open quotations or a total amount in the selected currency of open quotations. And they want some critical reporting angles. They want to view them by sales organization, by distribution channel, by the customer or sold to party, and they want to include the sales quotation date. Now, as an implementation specialist, you have to determine if S4HANA meets or doesn't meet the requirements, and if it doesn't, then you have to provide your development team with enough information for them to know what are the developments that need to be carried out to adapt it. Let's have a look at how we would do this. So once I open the tool, I see I have a search function here. I can search either CDS objects, say the virtual data models, or the OData services. I have my result list here, and here's where we'll get a bit more information on what we're viewing. So let's start by just doing a search of the word quotation. Once we search this, we have an immediate result, and we see that it's kind of a large list to go through, and we need to get a bit more specific. So let's expand our filter search. I do want the view type to be a view, a source type to be an actual view, because we're aiming to a consumption view, which are the ones who allow us to build reports or have an output. So I'll just select here the source type as view. And I will also include the type, because I want it to be a consumption view. So I can just search here for the type. Here it is, BDM view type. I include this into my filter areas or search areas, and here I can just type in consumption. Here we go. Now let's run it again. We see here that our list is considerably reduced, but we still have a lot of open possibilities. Now I want to focus around sales quotations, so I can just look in the view label to see what I can find. Once it runs again, I see my list is now a bit more reduced, but yeah, it's open sales quotations. So I can just, by inclusive text, just add the term search open. Now we run the list again, and we see we have just a couple of reporting views that we can consume. Now let's have a look at the first one. So our first view opens. We see here on top, it has some of its metadata, when it was created, who it was last modified by, and a couple of other parameters that define the view. We can minimize this because it's really a lot of information that doesn't interest us right now. And what we want to do is see how this is structured. So the first thing you see is a graphical interface, a plotting out of how the view is formed. We have here on our left side the inputs. So we have a parameter declaration, which is the display currency that we wish to have, a constant that determines the unit of measure. We see that the data foundation then retrieves using the input currency. It goes to this view, which is the underlying view, which would be this one. And it retrieves these characters. And at the same time, it uses some logic to retrieve the customer from a customer master data table. And at the end, we have our selection. This is then our view C_sales quotation by open status. This is the return. Now this, I can easily then, once I found this and I want to share it with my development team, I can download this in HTML or SVG. SVG is to avoid image quality loss, but I can just export an HTML file, do a quick download. It opens here, and I can see I have it ready to share or append it in an email, attached in an email. Let's go back to our tool. Once I know this, then I remember, so they want to make sure that the view contains the total net amount, sales organization, distribution channel, sold to party, and the sales quotation date. Let's look at the columns. I can see them here, but I can have a better view if I just click on this ribbon and examine the columns. I see here the total net amount, so that's good, it's included. I see the sold to party, the sales organization, the distribution channel, But unfortunately, I cannot find the sales quotation date. Now, where can we get this from? How can we bring this into this view? We would need to modify the system, create some extensions of the views, but we need to know where to source it from. And for this, I'm going to then look at the dependencies of the views. The dependencies here in the ribbon, I can select, and it's just going to show me everything that leads up to the composition of this view, or the creation of it. If I highlight my dependencies, it takes just a couple of seconds to load the objects, and it opens in a table form. This table form states all the objects where the tool, this view, gets its master data and other composite views. But sometimes reading things in table form it's not very intuitive. So we can view it in a tree format. And now we can see here, this is my consumption layer. I see here by the icons, this means consumption. These are composite views grouped by composite views. And here are my basic views, and these are dimension views. I can also switch here and change my grouping from VDM view type to analytics data category, for example. And then I'm going to see here that my dimension views are all grouped together. And the dimension views are exactly what I'm interested in because I need to find where to source the data. If I look at all the views that come together to form this consumption view, I see there's a dimension view called sales quotation. If I just click it and click on this link icon, I can open it up. So let's do that. Now I can see if there's data loaded into it just to make sure. And there actually is. And I can also search the columns in the data preview. And I'm going to run a search to see if I find if the date is available here. So I'll just open the settings, I'll unselect everything, and I'll just type the word in date. And I see here the sales quotation date is indeed available in this dimension view. So I can select it just to make sure that there's data in it. Great. So once I know this, I can go back to my schema here. And I know exactly where I can source it. So basically it's coming from this sales quotation, and this sales quotation is directly mapped to my underlying consumption layer, which is P sales quotation by open status, meaning it maps directly to this one. I can change my grouping again to have a better look. And it's indeed this one. Now let's have a look at the CDS source code of this and see what the developers actually need to extend to make sure that we include this parameter. If I look at my source code, all the CDS views are defined as a bit of a SQL with a bit of an SQL script. At the beginning, you see it's something similar, but not completely so. You see that at the beginning, a lot of parameters are defined. These are basically characteristics of the CDS view. Here's the definition where they define a couple of measures and a bit of logic. But then if I just scroll down, I see my filters, the fields that are being extracted as filters. I see my sold to party, my sales organization, distribution channel, but I see that the date is not included. So all I would need to do, I can press this button, copy the script. I can paste it on a mail and highlight this part and ask my developers to create an extension of the view and add the quotation date. So this is our first use case, how you can track and what you need to adapt and customize in the system. Let's have a look at our second use case. So in this case, you're a data analyst. Now there's a bit of an issue. You have a sales profit margin percentage KPI, which is showing lower than expected. You already got information on the query. The query is this one. And you have the calculation is provided for you. So it's net profits divided by net sales. And the net amounts of the profits and the sales should include invoices, debit memos, and pro forma invoices. Now you have to investigate the root of the difference, tracking the calculation of the KPI and its components, and obtaining enough information of the way so you can raise a detailed ticket to the support team in order to fix this. Let's have a look at how we would go about it in the system. So we can go ahead. 1 second, I need to copy the name. So we can just delete everything we had here. We go to CCS. Yeah. Sales VLMQ. Now, once we run a search for this, we see that we're not going to return any results. No CDS entities found in this because this is not a CDS entity. This is actually a query. So I have to search in my menu here, and I have to then, if I look here, I'm going to search by analytical query name, because that's the information I have. I add it to my filter range, I delete it here, and I go again. Oh, sorry. So again, to CCST sales. Let's run a search. And we see indeed it finds the query. Let's open it up. Now it's going to open up in my previously selected ribbon, the source code. And you can see searching through all this source code to determine where the KPI is actually calculated when it went wrong can be a bit lengthy work, especially if you have a list of 200 or 300 KPIs for which to do this. So let's have a look at the structure as we did the first time. And we can also see that the structure, we navigated here, it's quite a large query comprised of many, many columns. So we only want to target the KPI and we want to track it. So we're going to go again into our dependency part. Wait for a second for it to load. Okay. Now, our dependencies are a bit bigger than the last one, so it takes just a couple of seconds more to load. But we want to track the lineage of our KPI. So you can see that the dependency tree is quite big. It contains a lot of dimension objects, a couple of composite views, and then just one consumption view being our query. And it has a lot of base tables specified here. But let's just track our KPI. So we're going to select our lineage mode. And I just want a full picture of how my KPI is calculated. And so here I select full picture, and here I can select which measure or KPI I want, and it's sales profit margin. So come here, select, and it's just going to take a couple of seconds to run and determine the entire lineage of the KPI. Wait for a second more. There we go. So now we see that KPI. This is all the work that's happening in our consumption view. So each group that you see here, it's an actual view, one view, and this is all the logic that's being implemented. I have my second view here, third view, and all the way down to my base table. And these are the fields that are being extracted and moving every step of the way to make sure that we have a calculation at the end. Now, this is still a pretty big diagram, and I want to simplify it because I only want to see the transformations that are occurring along the way. I'm not interested really in looking at all the fields that are involved. So I'll just switch the detail level from full to transformations. Once I do this, you can see that the diagram is simplified quite a bit. So I have my sales profit margin that comes as a result. I have not divide by zero statement here. I can look at what the statement is by clicking here. So just not divide by zero when it's profit margin against sales volume net amount. That's exactly the calculation that was provided to us by the business. If I keep going, then I see I'm going to focus that if the issue was that the KPI is being lower than expected, that means that either our numerator is lower or our denominator is higher than expected. But I'm going to start with my numerator being the profit margin. So I see here there's some transformation occurring in the view I billing doc item analytics, and that's transforming the profit margin net amount. Let's see what the calculation is. Now it shows the complete calculation. I can just copy paste this to have a better view. Just open a bit of a notepad, drag this. And now for people who are accustomed to working with SAP, this might make a bit of sense. If not, then no worries. It just takes a bit of practice and knowledge of the system. But we know that what is required are invoices, which are doc type M, debit memos are doc type P, and pro forma invoices are doc type U. But if I check the logic that is defining the profit margin, I see that in the numerator for the net amount, the M is included, the P is included, but we're missing the doc type U. So then we can just copy paste this. In our ticket for the support team, we can request that they do a modification here or an extension of this already included view and include the document category U. And also we can export or copy this image, send the HTML image and highlight this area, telling them that this is actually where the error is occurring. So they should do an extension of the billing document item analytics view and make sure that they include document category view. So this concludes then our second use case. We can look then at a third one. Let's say that you're a master data steward and the material TG14 is to be discontinued. So the tasks are to determine the associated views that contain the material master data to be removed, determine the plans that are currently associated with the material, and provide a list of existing views that currently consume the material dimension view to assess the impact of changing it. So let's go ahead into our system and do this. Let's delete our search term. So what I'm going to do here is just search for the word material, or I know that my dimension view starts with an I underscore material. I do a direct search. And here it pops up as first. I'm going to go ahead and load this. Now, of course, dimension views can be quite large and they can be used in many places. But still, having a list of all the dependencies of the dimension view is important when doing some impact assessment. Now, how am I going to trace its associations? And I'm going to go to my data preview. Yeah. Okay, and I have a list of all my materials. Now I want to filter out on the material that's going to be removed with this which is TG14. So I'm going to go here, which opens up my filter. I can just open here and select material. Yeah. And I want to filter on material type TG14. Look for it. And there it is. So I've isolated the material that is going to be removed from the master data. Now let's look at what associations the master data table actually has. If I click on this button when previewing data, I can see that this table has associated on a one-to-one relationship with the base unit, one-to-one with material group, many-to-one with material plant, one-to-one with the material type, and so on and so forth. So I can screenshot this list and send it as a response that these are the associations that our material master data table has. And let's now look at the material plans that are actually involved in producing material TG14. So if I just click here, okay, it's going to open a second window. And all I have to do is select the row to indicate this is the material I want to trace. So after selecting the row, you see here it loads. Material TG14 is produced by plant codes 1710 and 1010. And finally, or my final request was to have a list of dependent views that are attached or that are consuming the dimension view I material. I can easily go to my where used ribbon, and here I have an entire list of all the views that are consuming this. So the impact assessment, of course, is quite big. Now I can export this list and filter it or manipulate it a bit further in Excel by just clicking this download button. Then it's going to fetch the data, and here I can open my Excel and it's going to contain all the necessary information. Here we go. So that concludes our use case number three, and that actually concludes the demonstration for today. So we hope that you've managed to see the value that the tool can deliver by providing a clear view into S4HANA, and it can save you a massive amount of time and resources, helping you deliver more accurate insights. If you'd like to have an extensive demo, you can go ahead and get in touch with us, and we will be happy to set this up. This tool is currently being used in a few of our client accounts, and it's proven to be a great accelerator when working with S4HANA. Now let's go ahead and kick off the Q&A session. I'm going to go ahead and show the Q&A. I see that there are no new questions. We have 4 published.
We have 2 questions.
Okay, I'm going to read the first one. Is looking at this photos. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I just said that we have 2 questions. Yeah, in the QA. Yeah, list.
I thought I heard someone else pop in. So one of the questions is looking at this marvelous functionality. Why SAP didn't try to buy it yet and make it standard? Well, that is that is a very good question. I think my colleague Roland has a bit more information on that.
So obviously we don't know what SAP's considerations are exactly. We do know that SAP does provide a couple of especially development tools that will allow you to gather the same information. It's just that it takes you so much more time to gather it, because you have to go into the source code. And there's a few more lightweight applications, I would say, like the view browser and the query browser, which will let you find views from your functional perspective. But this is exactly what we tried to solve when we were using those tools, that these tools either give you just not enough information if you want to drill down, or they give you too much information if you're just trying to get the overview. So that's what we try to gather here. I assume SAP is working on building something in between, but for us, there was already enough motivation, like with the customers that we're serving, to already go ahead and build something for ourselves. Well, if there's anybody from SAP in the audience, then we are happy to talk about any happy to negotiate any engagement there. So
sure. All right, thanks, Roland. We have a question posted by Anonymous, so not really nominated for best question, I guess. It says, is it possible to add new Z fields into CDS view and populate it based on formula? For example, as a sum of fields A, field A being a standard field.
Yes, I believe this is possible with the functionality that SAP provides. Currently, S4Explorer is not a development tool, so you're going to have to use S4Explorer to find out exactly where you need to be. And I think that's what Gabriel has shown us very convincingly, that S4Explorer lets you quickly identify. So it gives you the overview, it gives you the structure, it lets you see the big picture of how the different parts are connected. And then when you decide where you need to be, you can zoom in, drill down, and find exactly the pieces of details that you are interested in. And then when you decide that you're interested in one particular detail, then you can go into the source and find the exact place where you need to be. And right now, at this moment, you're going to have to go back into your development environment and create the extension there. That said, we have a couple of things on our roadmap, and we are investigating a couple of use cases that will allow S4Explorer to actually play a more active role in your development process. And if you see a use case for that, we are also happy to talk to you and to hear from you what we could do to simplify these things. So it's a great question. Thank you.
All right, I see we have another one. Is this used at a customer already? If so, was there a cost saving?
Yeah.
So it is being used in a couple of customers. It has proven to be quite effective. Now, if we compare, because we had to go through the process which I explained at the beginning, doing it manually. And if we compare it now that we're leveraging the tool, there is quite a difference in the efforts and the resources that we're using to be able to design and really implement the S4HANA, or customize it either, and really gather the requirements around the developments. As far as cost saving, I couldn't give you an actual number, but this is something that we're still in the works of investigating while we expand our user base.
Well, I can add a little bit to it. So first of all, we are currently using the tool ourselves to support us in our customer engagements, where we are bringing embedded analytics and also data warehousing analytics solutions with customer S4HANA solutions. So we use the tool there to plan our data extractions and to plan our dependencies, and it's proven a great help there. We also have one actual large customer which is using S4Explorer themselves. So as opposed to us using it to help our customer, this customer is well, we involved them in a evaluation process where they tried out S4Explorer in their actual development process. They evaluated it for some time, and they came up with an estimated cost savings and time savings in the development and the planning phase of their developments up to 30%. Now they have quite a large development team, so for them it was quite an easy task to come up with a decision to actually buy the product. And we're currently I cannot disclose too much of it, but I can say it's a very large player on the petrochemical market, and we are currently actively developing the tool in collaboration with them to help their use cases. And it's like I said, it's already providing them with very substantial savings in the development and planning phase.
I see that there are no more questions. So give a couple of seconds to see if anybody has anything else to say. If not, then we'll just proceed to pick our favorite one. But I think that only one person, only one name, the rest are anonymous. So I guess Valeri.
Yeah, to be honest, I like that question too, but it's a very hard question to answer because we are not SAP. Sure. I really like the question about the cost savings, because that's really what the tool is mostly about saving time, saving cost. And I think there's a third dimension which we didn't arrive at so on, which is accuracy. Because like I said, you can use the SAP standard development tools to gather the same information. The problem is you have to make the mental choice to actually follow through and, as Gabriel put it, actually go into the rabbit hole and reach so deep that you have your information. And it's not always clear that you actually will reach that deep. And S4Explorer puts all this information already on your screen, so you don't have to search for it and you don't have to remember to actually go digging for it. It's already resurfaced and put it right in front of you. So it results in a not a faster solution, not only a faster solution, but also more complete and more accurate, because you are less likely to miss.
It's less prone to error.
Less prone to error. Yes.
Trust me, you don't want to be the one going through all that script to make sure you find your target.
It can be done, and it takes considerable time, and usually you run out of time doing it. Yeah. So there's another question. Is it an add-on? So we chose not to go too deep into the architecture of the application, but I can explain it very briefly and very simply. So just like any other Fiori app that would run on your S4HANA server, this is exactly the same. So there's one piece that needs to be on the server itself, on the backend itself. That's a collection of some 20 custom CDS views that we provide and build. So you just install those and activate those. And then on top of that, we build one OData service, one custom OData service, and that is what we consume in our app. So the app is installed, uploaded to the S4HANA server and run there. There's a few different ways that you can set it up, but what we've just shown is exactly this scenario. So a very simple two-tier architecture. And right now, if you want to get it yourself, please contact us, because you cannot get it in the marketplace. We are looking at possibilities to make it available there.
Let's see.
Oh, there's another question.
So I can use
one more question. SD backend. So do you use SAP BTP to leverage functionality of SAP Analytics Cloud. So currently we're running this on SAP S/4HANA on-premise installations, and we are working with one of our partners to bring it to the SAP Cloud. But it's going to be S/4HANA for now. If there is interest for other SAP products like SAP Analytics or SAP BW, and you have some definite needs that you want to talk about, then please come to us, because we think we can deliver something in that space as well. But right now, the tool we just demonstrated is all about S/4HANA at the moment.
All right, I think we can leave it open for a couple more questions, but if that's it, then what do you think, Roland? What's your favorite? If we pick an anonymous one, I think then the person needs to say who they are so they can win the prize, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think that's putting someone on the spot.
Yeah, my favorite is about the cost saving.
Yeah, I agree. So really focusing on the benefits of it. So whoever is the anonymous that asked about the if there's a customer already, and if so, was there a cost saving? Please make yourself known to us, and I think I'm not sure how it would work. I mean, theoretically, somebody could email us like, "Yeah, I'm that." No, but yeah, that's true. Everybody can come up and say something. If not, then I guess we have to nominate either Poesal or Valeri, who are the ones who are actually.
Hannah, Alexander, what are the rules regarding that?
Yeah, we can ask the anonymous speaker, the anonymous attendee, to like raise his hand and, for example, to write to me or to you and tell his name, and we can like give prizes to both. It will be great.
Okay. So.
Yeah. Okay. If there are no questions, then thank you very much to our speakers for an interesting speech. As already mentioned, today's webinar recording will be posted on our video portal and on our YouTube channel. The links to the recording will be sent separately. Also, today on our SAP Tech Talks channel on Telegram, we will publish the results of the prize drawing among registered participants. Colleagues, thank you very much again for your participation and have a nice day.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.